The unexpected arrival. The stars outside the viewport stretched and twisted as the small human exploration ship, Pathfinder 7, exited hyperspace. The sudden drop back into normal space was rough, shaking the ship as warning lights flickered on across the control panels. Captain Marcus Kane gripped the armrests of his chair as his crew scrambled to check their readings. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. Lieutenant Sarah Evans, the ship's navigator, tapped rapidly on her console. "That wormhole was unstable. It threw us way off course. Checking coordinates now." She froze, eyes widening as she read the data. Captain, we're in the middle of an unknown star system," she said slowly. "Unknown." Kane frowned. "That shouldn't be possible. Every major system in this sector is mapped." "Well," Evans hesitated, "this one isn't in our database, and we're not alone." The ship's sensors suddenly blared with warning signals. Multiple large objects were closing in fast. "Captain, we have incoming vessels," shouted Lieutenant Gregor, the weapons officer. "Big ones, and they're heading straight for us." Before Kane could respond, a deep, commanding voice echoed through the ship's speakers. "Unidentified vessel, you have trespassed into the territory of the Grand Empire of Selvera. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will not be tolerated." A holographic screen flickered to life, displaying an alien figure sitting on an ornate throne. The creature was tall and regal, draped in shimmering golden robes. Its violet skin glowed faintly under the room's artificial lighting, and its 4 glowing eyes radiated authority. Kane exchanged a glance with his crew. "Grand Empire," he muttered. "Never heard of them." The alien continued speaking, its voice laced with arrogance. "You are now subjects of the Selvera Empire. Show respect, and you may be allowed to serve." Silence filled the ship's bridge. The humans stared at each other, processing the alien's words. Then, to the Empire's shock, Kane leaned back in his chair, took a slow sip of coffee, and replied, "Yeah, that's cool. So, can we go now?" The Exelveran Emperor's 4 eyes blinked in disbelief. "What did you just say?" Kane shrugged. "We just dropped out of hyperspace by accident. We're explorers, not looking for trouble." The alien leader's expression darkened. "You are in my empire. You are nothing here. Kneel before the might of Selvera." Kane sighed. He turned to Evans. "How long until we can jump again?" 15 minutes. The system needs time to realign after the wormhole distortion," she replied. Kane turned back to the screen. "Okay, Your Majesty. We'll just wait here and be on our way soon." The Emperor slammed his fist against the armrest. "Insolent creatures. Do you not understand the power before you?" Outside the viewport, the fleet moved closer. Massive warships surrounded Pathfinder 7, their sleek, curved designs meant to intimidate. But the humans remained unimpressed. Gregor glanced at the sensors. They'd locked weapons on us. Kane exhaled. "Right. So they're the attack first, ask questions later type." "Captain," Evans said in a low voice, "these guys remind me of those pompous old nobles back on Earth." Kane smirked. "Yeah, full of themselves, bad at listening, and probably have no idea how to handle people who don't fear them." The Emperor narrowed his glowing eyes. "You will surrender, or you will be destroyed." Kane took another sip of coffee and shook his head. "Nah." The Emperor recoiled slightly. "Do you what?" Kane leaned forward, his casual demeanor fading slightly. "Look, Emperor, whatever your name is, you seem to think we're scared. We're not. You think you're impressive. You're not. So let's save each other the trouble. You let us go, and we won't embarrass you in front of your own people." A stunned silence filled the room. The Emperor's guards exchanged nervous glances. No one had ever spoken to their ruler this way before. Species across the galaxy bowed before the Empire. They cowered at the sight of Selveran warships. But these humans, they weren't afraid. They weren't even interested. The Emperor gritted his teeth. You dare mock the might of HFY? Very well. If you will not bow, you will suffer. The transmission cut off. Well, Kane muttered, setting his coffee mug down. That went well. Outside, the warships moved into attack formation. Gregor turned to the captain. Orders. Kane cracked his neck and grinned. Let's show them why they shouldn't underestimate humans. To be continued. First contact. Arrogance meets indifference. The Pathfinder 7 trembled slightly as the HFY warships moved into an aggressive formation. Their sleek, curved hulls gleamed under the distant sun, their weapons locking onto the small human vessel. Inside the ship's bridge, Captain Marcus Kane remained perfectly calm, watching the situation unfold with an almost bored expression. Multiple ships charging weapons, Gregor reported. They're serious. Aha, Kane said, leaning back in his chair. And we're still stuck here for, what? Another 10 minutes. At least, Evans confirmed. Kane sighed. Great. Guess we have time for some diplomacy. A second transmission came through. This time, it was a new alien, one dressed in an elaborate military uniform, his golden chest plate shining under artificial light. His eyes, sharp and cold, narrowed at the humans with barely concealed disgust. I am Admiral Koveth of the HFY Imperial Fleet. You have insulted our Emperor and our Empire. Your mockery will not be tolerated. Surrender immediately, and you may be spared. Kane raised an eyebrow. Spared from what? Listening to another one of your speeches. Koveth's jaw tightened. You dare. Yeah. Kane interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. You're powerful. We're insects. We should bow. Blah, blah, blah. Look, do you guys have a manual or something? Maybe a welcome to our empire pamphlet. Because if this is how you introduced yourselves, I gotta say, your PR department is terrible. Evans stifled a laugh. Gregor just smirked. Koveth's face darkened. You mock the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. You should be groveling at our feet. Kane glanced at the rest of his crew. Anyone here feel like groveling? Silence. Yeah. Didn't think so, Kane said, turning back to the screen. Koveth's nostrils flared. Enough. You will kneel before the Empire, or you will be destroyed. Kane sighed, rubbing his temples. Okay, Admiral. Let's say we do surrender. What happens next? Koveth smirked. You will be processed and assigned a place in our empire. Your species will serve under our rule, contributing to the glory of HFY. Kane blinked. So, slavery. The Admiral's smirk faltered. We prefer the term service to the Empire. And if we refuse? Koveth's expression turned cruel. Then you will be eliminated. You are insignificant compared to us. Kane exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Man, this is disappointing. Koveth frowned. What? Kane gestured at the screen. I mean, look at you guys. Massive ships, fancy armor, big speeches about power and glory. I was expecting something impressive. But this, he sighed. This is just sad. Koveth's eyes blazed with fury. You will regret those words. Kane smiled slightly. We'll see. The screen cut off. Outside, the warships positioned themselves for an attack. Evans checked the countdown. 7 minutes until we can jump. That's plenty of time, Kane said, standing up. All right, people, let's give them something to think about. Gregor grinned. Finally, the humans weren't impressed by the Empire. But soon, the Empire would learn to be very impressed by them. To be continued. The grand tour of the Empire. The bridge of Pathfinder 7 remained tense as the HFY fleet surrounded them, weapons primed. Captain Marcus Kane, however, looked more annoyed than worried. Then, just before the fleet opened fire, another transmission came through. The Emperor was back on screen, his expression forced into a calm, diplomatic smile. It appears there has been a misunderstanding. Kane raised an eyebrow. Oh, a second ago, you wanted us dead. You are different from the others we have encountered, the Emperor admitted. Most species tremble before us. But your lack of fear intrigues me. Perhaps we judged too quickly. Instead of destruction, let us show you the glory of the HFY Empire. Kane exchanged glances with his crew. Evans shrugged. Might as well see what they've got. Fine, Kane said. Give us the tour. The magnificent capital. Escorted by a fleet of warships, Pathfinder 7 was guided to the HFY homeworld, a planet-sized city gleaming with golden towers and hovering platforms. Ships zipped between skyscrapers, and banners with the Empire's insignia were draped across colossal statues of past rulers. The Emperor's voice echoed through the comms. Behold, the jewel of our empire, the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. Kane and his crew stared at the screens, taking in the sights. Evans nodded slowly. Looks big. Gregor squinted. Kinda over-designed. Kane took another sip of coffee. Yeah, feels like they're trying too hard. A HFY tour guide, a high-ranking official named Varzal, greeted them as they landed. He puffed out his chest, clearly expecting awe. Welcome, humans. You are among the privileged few to witness the majesty of the HFY capital. Every structure here is a symbol of our greatness. Kane glanced at a massive golden statue of the Emperor towering over the city. It was at least 100 meters tall. He raised an eyebrow. So, how many of these statues do you guys need? Varzal looked insulted. Our Emperor's image inspires loyalty. Gregor smirked, or insecurity. Varzal ignored the comment and led them deeper into the city. A crumbling empire. As they walked through the streets, the humans started noticing cracks in the perfection of the empire. The further they got from the main districts, the more signs of decay appeared. Buildings weren't as well maintained, machinery was old, and most importantly, there were civilians who looked afraid. Evans leaned toward Kane. This place isn't as glorious as they make it seem. Kane nodded. They rule by fear. They don't inspire loyalty. They demand it. At one point, a group of alien workers bowed deeply as the humans passed, mistaking them for high-ranking officials. Their eyes held fear. Kane stopped. You don't have to do that, he said. One of the workers, a thin, exhausted-looking alien, hesitated before whispering, We do. If we don't, we are punished. Kane's expression hardened. Varzal, noticing the interaction, stepped in. Come, humans, there is still so much to see. Kane followed, but now he knew the truth. The HFY Empire wasn't a mighty civilization. It was a hollow one, built on intimidation, on appearances, and all it would take was one push for it to start crumbling. The cracks beneath the gold. Kane and his crew followed Varzal through the gleaming city, but their focus wasn't on the towering statues or the golden banners. They had seen enough of those. Instead, they watched the people, civilians who averted their gaze, workers who moved quickly to avoid notice, guards standing stiffly at every corner. Gregor leaned in. This place feels like a fancy prison. Evans nodded. They act like one wrong move could get them punished. Kane glanced at Varzal, who continued his speech about the Empire's greatness. Tell me something, Kane said, interrupting him. You've been showing us all this glory, but where are the people actually living? You know, normal citizens, not soldiers, not nobles, just regular folks. Varzal's expression twitched for half a second before he forced a polite smile. Ah, well, the common districts are not as visually grand as the capital center. But I assure you, all citizens of the Empire are privileged to serve under our rule. Kane folded his arms. Right, and I assume they love serving. Varzal's smile faltered. Of course. Kane glanced at Evans and Gregor. They all knew the truth. The Empire wasn't ruling through respect. It was ruling through fear. Then, ahead of them, a sudden commotion broke out. A group of civilians had gathered, whispering in hushed tones as two armored Selvaran enforcers dragged a struggling alien across the plaza. The alien, an elderly reptilian creature with worn, tattered clothing, was pleading. "Please, I only spoke out. I meant no harm." One of the enforcers backhanded him, sending him crashing to the ground. Kane clenched his jaw. What's this about? Varzal barely spared a glance. A dissenter. He spoke against the Emperor's wisdom. Such defiance cannot be tolerated. Kane's fists tightened. So, speaking your mind gets you beaten in this great empire of yours. Varzal's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. You do not understand our ways, human. Order must be maintained. The enforcers raised their weapons, preparing to strike the helpless alien again. Kane exhaled slowly, then stepped forward. "Hey," he called out. The enforcers paused, turning to him. "What is your business here, outsider?" one of them demanded. Kane shrugged. "Just wondering, how many soldiers does it take to feel powerful? Because I see two of you, armed in fancy armor, and one unarmed old man on the ground." The enforcers glared at him, but the civilians watching seemed surprised, as if they had never seen anyone question authority before. The lead enforcer stepped toward Kane. "Stay out of this, human. This does not concern you." Kane smirked. "See, that's where you're wrong. Because if this is how your empire treats people, well, now I am concerned." Varzal stepped between them, his voice sharp. "Captain Kane, I suggest you do not interfere in imperial matters." Kane stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Fine." Then, without warning, he spun around and decked the enforcer in the face. The armored soldier crashed to the ground, groaning in pain. The crowd gasped. Gregor grinned. Now that's diplomacy. The second enforcer lunged at Kane, but Gregor caught him with a swift punch, knocking him out cold. Evans helped the elderly alien to his feet. "You all right?" The old man looked at them in stunned disbelief. You stood for me." Kane dusted off his hands. "Yeah, crazy concept. Ha." The civilians watching seemed frozen, uncertain. Then, one by one, they began to murmur. It started as a whisper, then it grew. They had just seen someone challenge the Empire's enforcers, and win. For the first time in a long while, they saw that their rulers weren't untouchable. Varzal's face had turned pale. What have you done?" Kane smirked. "Oh, I think we just started something." Suddenly, alarms blared across the city. The Emperor's voice thundered from overhead speakers. "Humans, you dare defy. You guardial pay for this and so evidence." Kane turned to his crew. "Well, looks like we wore out our welcome." Gregor cracked his knuckles. "About time. Let's show them what real defiance looks like." To be continued. Escape and uprising. Alarms blared through the city as Selvaran enforcers rushed into the plaza, weapons drawn. The once silent civilians now murmured in shock, their eyes darting between the fallen guards, the angry officials, and the unshaken humans. Captain Kane exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Well, that escalated fast. Evans tapped her wrist display. Pathfinder 7's on high alert. We need an exit. Fast. Varzal's face was twisted with rage. "You fools. You have defied the might of the Empire. There is nowhere in this galaxy you can hide." Kane smirked. "That's funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you." Varzal flinched. Before the Selvaran guards could react, Kane grabbed a discarded energy baton from the fallen enforcer and hurled it at a power junction nearby. Sparks exploded as the lights flickered, plunging the plaza into momentary chaos. "Run!" Kane shouted. Gregor and Evans flanked him as they dashed through the narrow streets, weaving between startled civilians. Behind them, Zelvaran enforcers shouted orders, their heavy boots pounding against the metallic ground. Blaster bolts whizzed past, striking walls and sending chunks of debris flying. Gregor glanced back. They're bad shots. Kane grinned. They've never had to fight someone who shoots back. A city ready to boil over. As they ran, something became clear. People were watching. The Empire's citizens, previously cowed into silence, were seeing something new, something they'd never witnessed before. Someone fighting back. An elderly shopkeeper whispered. They struck an enforcer and lived. A young alien worker muttered, if they can stand up to them, why can't we? The murmurs spread like wildfire. Kane noticed it too. He and his crew weren't just running. They were planting a seed. Evans pointed ahead. Market square. Lots of cover. They skidded into an open marketplace, knocking over crates and supplies as they darted between stalls. Vendors gasped as enforcers burst in after them. One soldier leveled a weapon. On your knees. Now. Kane looked at the gathered civilians, at the fear in their eyes. He knew what was about to happen. And he had an idea. Slowly, he raised his hands, but not in surrender. Instead, he turned to the crowd and shouted, "You see this? This is your empire. Obey or get beaten. Obey or get killed. How long are you going to let them control you?" Silence. Then, a single voice rose. "We are not slaves." It was the old alien Kane had saved earlier, standing defiantly at the front of the crowd. The enforcers hesitated. Another voice joined. "We will not kneel." Then another. "Down with the Emperor." A roar erupted through the marketplace. The civilians, merchants, workers, travelers, turned on the enforcers. Chaos. Fists swung. Crates were thrown. Workers tackled armored soldiers, wrestling them to the ground. The people had been afraid for too long. And now they were angry. Kane grinned. "Well, that worked better than I thought." Gregor laughed. "You just started a revolution in 5 minutes." Evans nodded toward a side street. "Exit's clear. Let's move." As the humans sprinted toward the spaceport, the Empire was learning a painful lesson. Fear ruled for a long time, but all it took was a spark to burn it down. To be continued. Escape from the Empire. The streets of the Zelvaran capital were in chaos. Civilians, once too afraid to resist, had turned on their oppressors. Enforcers were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers, their commands drowned out by the roar of rebellion. Captain Kane, Evans, and Gregor sprinted through the alleyways, dodging overturned stalls and panicked crowds. Evans checked her wrist display. Pathfinder 7's prepped for emergency takeoff, but the spaceport's on lockdown. Kane frowned. "Figures. They're not gonna let us waltz out of here." Gregor smirked. "Guess we'll have to crash the party." The spaceport siege. As they neared the spaceport entrance, they spotted the problem. Dozens of elite Zelvaran shock troops had locked down the area. Massive turrets lined the walls, ready to obliterate anything unauthorized. In the center of the security detail stood a towering figure, High Warden Korvek, a ruthless Zelvaran commander clad in obsidian black armor, his glowing red eyes locked onto the approaching humans. "You have sown disorder, human," Korvek growled, his deep voice amplified by his helmet. "Now you will answer for it." Kane exhaled. "Great. Another overly dramatic alien in fancy armor." Evans cocked her rifle. "Plan." Kane surveyed the scene, then grinned. "Yeah, we let them think they have us." Gregor blinked. "That's a terrible plan." Kane's grin widened. "Exactly. They won't see it coming." The bluff. Kane stepped forward, arms raised as if surrendering. All right. You got us," he called out. "Let's be honest. There's no way we're getting past all this firepower. So go ahead, arrest us." Korvek narrowed his glowing eyes. "You surrender." Kane shrugged. "Sure, on one condition." Korvek tilted his head. You are not in a position to make demands. Kane smirked. I'm not demanding. I'm just saying, if I were you, I'd turn around. Confused, Korvac glanced over his shoulder. And that's when the entire civilian uprising arrived. Hundreds of rebels stormed the spaceport, armed with stolen weapons, makeshift explosives, and sheer determination. For the first time, the XL-Veran forces weren't facing terrified civilians. They were facing a revolution. The battle for freedom. Chaos erupted as the rebels crashed into the security blockade. Explosions rocked the terminal, plasma bolts streaked through the air, and the XL-Veran forces scrambled to contain the uprising. Kane, Evans, and Gregor used the distraction to sprint toward the hangar where Pathfinder 7 was docked. A squad of XL-Veran troopers blocked their way. Gregor grinned. My turn. Before they could react, he charged, grabbing the first soldier and slamming him into the ground before knocking out another with a brutal uppercut. Evans fired off precise shots, dropping more enemies as Kane sprinted ahead, shouting into his communicator. Pathfinder 7, fire up the engines. We're coming in hot. Face off with Korvac. Just as they reached the final stretch, Korvac landed in front of them with a thud, his massive form blocking their path. His red eyes burned with fury. You will not leave this world, human. Kane sighed. See, people keep saying that. And yet here we are. Korvac lunged, swinging a massive energy blade. Kane barely dodged, feeling the heat of the weapon slicing through the air. Gregor charged, throwing a punch, only for Korvac to catch his fist midair and hurl him aside like a ragdoll. Evans fired her rifle, but Korvac deflected the shots with his blade, advancing relentlessly. Kane gritted his teeth. Okay, new plan. He pulled a flash grenade from his belt and tossed it at Korvac's feet. Boom. The blinding light exploded, stunning the XL-Veran commander just long enough for the crew to rush past him. They dashed up the boarding ramp of Pathfinder 7 as the engines roared to life, breaking free. As they lifted off, XL-Veran fighters scrambled to intercept them. Brace for evasive maneuvers. Evans shouted, gripping the controls. The ship jerked as enemy fire slammed into their shields. Alarms blared. Gregor strapped in. Remind me again why we keep getting into these situations. Kane grinned, gripping his chair. Because it's fun. Evans pulled the controls sharply, sending Pathfinder 7 into a spiraling ascent. Below them, the XL-Veran capital was in flames. The uprising was spreading. They had done more than just escape. They had lit the spark of revolution. To be continued. Hunted across the stars. As Pathfinder 7 shot through the atmosphere, the chaos of the XL-Veran capital shrank beneath them. Fires raged, alarms blared, and the once mighty empire trembled under the weight of rebellion. But Kane wasn't celebrating yet. Evans frowned at her console. Bad news. We've got multiple XL-Veran warships locking onto us. Gregor groaned. Of course we do. We just started an uprising. They're not gonna let us walk away. Kane leaned forward. How long until we hit hyperspace? Evans shook her head. We need at least 30 seconds to calculate the jump. If they hit us before then. A sudden blast rocked the ship as enemy fighters opened fire. Yeah, I really don't think they're gonna give us 30 seconds. Gregor shouted, gripping his seat. The chase begins. 2 XL-Veran interceptors screamed toward them, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. Shields flared as the ship shook violently. Evans gritted her teeth. They're too fast. I can't outrun them. Kane smirked. Then don't. Evans shot him a look. What? Kane leaned back, thinking. The plan was insane, but so was walking into Orzar with a price on their heads. Evans, ever the voice of reason, shook her head. This is suicide. We'd have to sneak into the heart of the XL-Veran Empire again. And this time, we wouldn't just be running. We'd be stealing classified intelligence from the most paranoid species in the galaxy. Gregor scratched his chin, I mean, yeah. But also, if we pull it off, we'd be free. Kane glanced at Sarah. Why help us? What do you get out of this? Sarah's expression darkened. Let's just say the Empire has taken things from me too. You want to survive. I want revenge. Our goals align. For now. Kane considered her words, then smirked. All right. We're in. Evans groaned. Why do I even bother? Gregor grinned. Because you love the adrenaline rush. Evans muttered. I hate you both. Sarah stood. Good. Then let's get to work. If we're going to pull this off, we need a ship upgrade, an infiltration plan, and a distraction big enough to shake the Empire to its core. Kane cracked his knuckles. Lucky for you, causing trouble is what we do best. As they left the bar, the bounty boards flashed their faces in bright red. 1 million credits. Wanted. Dead or alive. And yet, for the first time since this whole mess started, Kane wasn't running. He was about to run straight into the fire. Gregor grinned. You know what? I like it. Evans sighed. This is a terrible idea. Kane's smirk widened. Yeah, but so was running into an empire's capital. And we did fine. Evans rolled her eyes. Fine. Setting course for Orzar. Let's just try not to die, okay? Kane leaned back. No promises. Pathfinder 7 veered off course, heading straight toward the most lawless region of space, where danger, deception, and opportunity awaited. Into the den of thieves. Pathfinder 7 dropped out of hyperspace near Orzar, a lawless station floating in the void like a rusted metal quartz. The massive, sprawling structure was barely holding itself together. Patched-up hulls, flickering neon lights, and docking bays that looked like they'd been salvaged from a dozen different starships. Gregor whistled. Cozy place. Evans shook her head. More like a death trap. Every bounty hunter, smuggler, and pirate in the sector operates out of here. Kane grinned. Exactly. And no one asks questions. As they approached, a deep mechanical voice crackled over the comms. Unidentified vessel. State your business. Kane leaned in. Just a few travelers looking for work. A pause. Then, docking bay 12. Keep your weapons holstered. Or don't. Makes it more fun for us. Gregor raised an eyebrow. Friendly bunch. Evans sighed. I already hate this plan. Kane smirked. Relax. We'll be in and out before anyone even knows we're here. Famous last words. A hive of scum, and, well, mostly scum. The moment they stepped off Pathfinder 7, they were hit by a wave of stale air, industrial fumes, and the scent of too many unwashed bodies crammed into one place. The marketplace was a chaotic mess. Alien merchants hawking black market tech, mercenaries drinking from rusted metal mugs, and bounty hunters scanning the crowd for their next payday. Gregor muttered, I feel very popular right now. Evans nodded subtly toward a holoboard above a weapons vendor. Their faces were plastered across a most wanted bounty screen, flashing in bright red letters. Wanted, 1 million EDKS. Dead or alive. Kane frowned. Well, that's inconvenient. Evans hissed. I told you this was a bad idea. A dangerous offer. They moved quickly, keeping their heads low. Kane led them toward a dimly lit bar tucked into the back of the marketplace. A massive four-armed alien bartender eyed them as they approached. New faces. That's rare. His voice was like grinding metal. Kane slid a credit chip across the counter. We need information. And a contact. The bartender picked up the chip, inspected it, then chuckled. You don't need a contact, human. You need a miracle. He gestured to a shadowed corner. A slender, hooded figure sat at a table, watching them with piercing yellow eyes. If you're looking to survive, talk to her. Evans whispered, I don't trust this. Kane grinned. That's the spirit. Let's go say hello. They approached the hooded figure. She didn't move, just tilted her head slightly. You're either brave or stupid to walk into Orzar with a 1,000,000 credit bounty on your heads, she said, voice smooth as silk. Kane smirked. Bit of both. Name's Kane. You are. She pulled back her hood, revealing sharp, angular features and dark violet skin. And Nick Sari, one of the most notorious information brokers in the galaxy. Call me Sarah, she said, and if you want to make it out of here alive, you're going to need my help. Gregor folded his arms. And why would you help us? Sarah leaned forward, a dangerous smile on her lips. Because I don't like the HFY Empire either. And I have a job that only a crew crazy enough to come here could pull off. Kane chuckled. Now we're talking. The impossible job. Sarah's golden eyes gleamed as she studied them. Around them, the bar was alive with hushed deals and silent threats, but in this moment, all that mattered was the choice Kane and his crew were about to make. Gregor crossed his arms. All right, let's hear it. What's this job you're so eager to offer? Sarah smirked. The kind that only fugitives with nothing to lose would consider. Evans sighed. That's not reassuring. Sarah leaned forward. The HFY Empire has a vault. Hidden, secured, impossible to breach. Kane raised an eyebrow. And let me guess. You want us to crack it open. Sarah's grin widened. Not just any vault. They're intelligence archives. Inside is every secret they don't want the galaxy to know, including your files. Your faces are all over the bounty boards, and that's not going away unless we erase you from their records. Evan's eyes widened. You're saying we could make the bounty disappear? Sarah nodded. No records, no bounty. It would be like you never existed in their system. Gregor scoffed. And how exactly do we break into the most secure facility in the Empire? Sarah's smirk never wavered. With a little help and a whole lot of chaos. The stakes get higher. Kane leaned back. You can't outrun them, but we can outthink them. Gregor cracked his knuckles. Oh, I love when we do that. The trap. Kane pointed at the radar. See that asteroid field up ahead? Evans nodded. Yeah, but fly straight into it. Gregor blinked. Wait, what? Kane grinned. Trust me. Evans hesitated for only a second. Then she yanked the controls, steering Pathfinder 7 into the asteroid field. Behind them, the HFY fighters hesitated. Korvac's voice crackled over their comms. Do not let them escape. Follow them. The interceptors followed, right into the trap. Rock and a hard place. The moment Pathfinder 7 weaved through the asteroids, Kane and Gregor sprang into action. Gregor, fire the rear thrusters at full burst on my mark. Gregor grinned. I really hope this is as crazy as it sounds. Kane smirked. It is. Evans dodged between massive chunks of rock as the HFY fighters struggled to keep up. Then, now, Kane shouted. Gregor slammed the thruster control forward. Pathfinder 7 jerked to a sudden halt as the HFY ships shot past them, straight into the asteroids. The lead fighter had no time to react before it smashed into a massive rock, exploding in a bright fireball. The second barely managed to veer away, only to be struck by debris, sending it spiraling out of control. Evans whooped. Nice move, Kane. Kane smirked. Told you. Outthink, not outrun. Gregor chuckled. Remind me to never let you play cards. Korvac's wrath. But the celebration didn't last. Evans' screen lit up with an incoming transmission. Human. Korvac's deep voice growled through the comms. You think you have won. This is not over. Kane leaned forward. Oh, because from where I'm sitting, it kinda looks like we did. Korvac's voice was full of barely contained rage. You have made an enemy of the HFY Empire. There will be nowhere in this galaxy where you can hide. We will hunt you down. We will make you suffer. Kane chuckled. You know, you keep saying scary things, but all I hear is blah, blah, blah. We're mad because the humans made us look bad. Gregor laughed. Yeah, buddy, you might want to work on your intimidation game. Korvek's breathing was heavy. Enjoy your victory while you can, human. It will not last. The transmission cut. Evans sighed. That guy's really holding a grudge. Kane leaned back, folding his arms. Good. That means we hit a nerve. Gregor smirked. Yeah. But now we've got an empire hunting us. Kane grinned. Then let's make sure we give them something to chase. Evans hit the final calculations. Coordinates locked. Engaging hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. With a burst of energy, Pathfinder 7 jumped into the void, leaving the Excelveran Empire reeling in their wake. To be continued. Wanted across the galaxy. Hyperspace stretched before them, endless and mesmerizing, as Pathfinder 7 hurtled through the void. For the first time in hours, the ship wasn't shaking from enemy fire or atmospheric turbulence. Gregor let out a long breath. Okay, we're not dead. That's a plus. Evans leaned back in her seat, rubbing her temples. Barely. That was too close. Kane smirked. Come on, that was fun. Evans shot him a look. That's one word for it. But the moment of calm didn't last. A warning klaxon blared. Evans' console lit up. Incoming transmission. Wide broadcast. Kane frowned. Empire. She tapped a button. A holographic screen flickered to life. A grim-faced Excelveran official appeared, his voice cold and sharp. Attention, galactic citizens. Be advised. The following individuals are declared enemies of the Excelveran Empire. Kane, Evans, and Gregor's faces appeared on the screen, their images plastered across the broadcast. These fugitives are responsible for high treason, inciting rebellion, and attacking Imperial forces. They are extremely dangerous. A bounty of 1 million credits is offered for their capture, dead or alive. Gregor's jaw dropped. 1 million credits. Evans paled. We just became the most wanted people in the galaxy. Kane exhaled. Well, that escalated. No safe haven. Silence filled the cockpit as the weight of their new reality sank in. Kane leaned back, rubbing his chin. All right, we need a plan. Evans scoffed. Yeah, got one. Because right now, we can't go anywhere without half the galaxy trying to collect on us. Gregor folded his arms. We can't hide. Not with that kind of bounty. Someone's gonna turn us in real fast. Kane thought for a moment, then grinned. Then we don't hide. Evans raised an eyebrow. Come again. Kane tapped the star map. We go somewhere they'd never expect fugitives to go. Gregor leaned in. Which is? Kane smirked. Straight into the heart of crime itself, the black markets of Orzar. Evans blinked. Wait, you want to go to the most dangerous outlaw hub in the sector, the one full of bounty hunters? Kane nodded. Exactly.